Awesome. Welcome, everybody. It's Andy Helko and Tony Zayas. Tony popped over, and so we've got some kids and dogs running around. We're having a good, fun time. I think the entire company is actually coming over pretty soon, and we're going to hang out and cook some burgers and stuff. But today we've got something really, really exciting. We have a great founder, entrepreneur, friend of Tony's, who's on with us today, Jeff Schwerk, who's going to be talking about kind of his history, what he's done in the world. And I'm going to hand it over to Tony to kick us off and introduce Jeff, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so thank you, Andy. So real good. Yeah, I'm excited to, Jeff, have you here to join us. It's been a while. We've known each other quite a while, and I think it's been a couple of years, and we've actually had a conversation like this. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about what you've been up to and what's the latest. But what I figured we'd start with is we kick it off and maybe tell the history. You and I met, I would say 2007 or 8, something like that.
It's been a long time, and we've known each other since like the inception of my career and yours here.
Yeah, in the marketing world, that's very much true. Jeff and I met at a marketing conference. I think we had dinner the night before the conference started. We sat next to each other, kind of got to know one another, and then decided to sit at the conference together and just kind of hit it off, stayed in touch, and then we ended up working on some projects together, which was really cool. I think that was, you'll hear about that as Jeff tells his story and his history. But Jeff, you have a super unique background prior to your whole marketing and software career. Do you mind sharing a little bit about kind of your background, where you came from? It'll explain some of the stuff that's behind you there.
Yeah, so this is all my old stuff. This is my my man cave, if you will, is my office. So it's like a mini apartment with all my cool stuff. First of all, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And Tony, it's always great to catch up. And I know it's been a little bit of time, but we always just jump right back into the flow. So that's really cool. So yeah, let's talk about the beginning, how I got here. For me, since I was a little kid, I wanted to fly airplanes. And as you guys can tell, probably, I don't know if you can see in the video, but like behind me, there's a bunch of patches and it says pilot on the top, my name. I wanted to fly jets for the Air Force, and that's what I was able and lucky enough to do from my high school to college into my career path, and was able to eventually get into an F-16. And I had about 6 to 8 years in the F-16 with 8.5 years in the Air Force before I blew a disc in my back in 2007. Actually, right at the end of June of 2007. So basically like 13 years ago this month. And then, was one of my last flights in the jet. For me, it was kind of one of those like whoa moments where you think you're invincible, and then all of a sudden you get slapped with something that for me it was unrecoverable from. I had surgery in September of 2007, and then was supposed to be able to get back in the jet 6 or 12 weeks later. It was 12 weeks later, and then 6 weeks later my disc re-slipped. And then by the time I got back into the doctor and got all the medical stuff cleared to go back in and get it fixed again, the original doctor, who happened to be an ex-flight surgeon in the military, said it's more dangerous for me to go in right now than to let you recover slowly over time, which meant that my career was essentially over, because I couldn't fly. I was like in pain, severe pain all the way down to like my ankle. Anybody that's ever had back pain, like I couldn't stand up. Like that's how bad it was. Like I just collapsed to the floor. So at that point in time, I'm like, in a hospital bed or on a couch, kind of looking, what am I going to do next? Like, how am I going to pivot my career? I can't go get a job, but I'm still working, in the government. What I was going to do next. So I was able to talk to, my med group commander. I was able to talk to some people that were the flight surgeons, and their best option for me was, we're going to work to get you medically retired after, basically the 12-month period of trying to get better. And that's where, Tony, I started dabbling into the online world. Like, how am I going to make money online from a laptop, in my spare time? Because, again, I couldn't work. And that's where eventually, you and I crossed paths at one of, I think, probably my first marketing conference, probably one of yours too, where we were just kind of like, hey, dude, how's it going? Let's just be cool with somebody and sit down. We all had dinner and hung out and, kind of just forged that that bond from there. But from that point forward, it was like, all right, I have to get what I'm going to do next. What's my second act in my life? And I was a little younger at the time. I was like 29 or 30, not expecting to basically have to pivot into do something else. I took basically the motivation and determination that I had from being younger to fly and working 12 hours a day in the Air Force, and transfer that over to how do I work when I'm not working in the Air Force to my business, and then eventually transitioning full time into, all right, it's time to grind and get my actual online business off the ground. And then that's where it kind of just started to go from there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those attributes that you have, like, definitely came from, your background. Like, you're really focused, you get stuff done, and all those things, have an obvious impact in your business career. When we first started, so we met at that marketing conference and kind of hit it off there. At that point, and what we were diving into was a lot of like online courses and things like that.
Yep.
And we had some really great success doing that. And that's when I think, as part of one of those, is when you first started your first software project, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's funny that you know just as much, if not more, about like where this all came from, because you saw it from a different perspective than I did. It's 100% true. After having almost 1,000 hours in the jet and taking kind of what I learned previously, I kind of grew up with that like mindset. So it wasn't like it got beaten into me by the Air Force. I kind of was already that way of the way I thought of things. And I think a lot of founders are like that too. You have a very specific way that you do things. It's your personality. So I fit really good into the military side of things. But when it came to my business, we were doing training products, right? Here's, how to do this. First of all, it started with video marketing, how to do like SEO for business and, business assets for websites. And that's how I went from internet marketing to working with small businesses. Was, oh, you do marketing? Well, clearly I'm a business. I need marketing. Can you do that for me? And that's kind of how I transitioned over. But doing some of the local stuff and the SEO, and that's where, you and I started really working together. We had to keep up with, as the economy was interesting in about 2008, 2009, 2010, basically the cream of the crop is the only thing that survived. So you had to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And to do that, anybody can create training. Anybody can say, I'll go look at these 4 courses, put something together, and then offer it. Or take what what you do, and then offer it. So we decided to create a small piece of software that generated leads. That would, back when you didn't have to worry about Google APIs and places keys and things like that, and cost. We could go out there and we created a little desktop piece of software that I was able to bonus into one of the first couple packages that we were selling. And then that's where it really kind of, the light bulb moment went on for me, when I started seeing the conversions of people saying, well, I'll get this just because of this piece of software that you're including in it, because you included this that somebody else didn't. And then went out there and continued to sell it, and then actually ran a pretty good sell where we sold about, I think, 5,500 to 6,000 copies in a week of that software on like a fire sale. And then that's where I was 100% sold on software from that point forward, and continued to say, all right, what are we going to do next with our plan and growing forward? And this was just a small little desktop tool that over the course of, a year, cost me less than $30,000 to build back then, which I know a lot of people will be like, wow, that's not that much. Other people will be like, that's a ton. But realize if you're doing small bits and building it up, that's $2,000, $3,000, less than $3,000 a month that I'm investing back into this thing. And we're able to get it out the door. And for us, we just happened to find, through a friend of mine, a little code house that could build it quickly, and then just reinvesting that money to be able to build out a bigger piece of software every couple months.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. And, just kind of something that stuck with me was, you mentioned, after you got injured, not feeling invincible anymore. And then you started talking about your mindset and background. I'm just kind of curious, like, as an entrepreneur, someone, talk a little bit more about that mindset, personality, risk aversity of starting, and I think about feeling invincible. When I started my business, the first couple of years, I think my risk tolerance was really high.
Yeah.
You have that kind of feeling of a kid of being invincible, then you might get beat up a little bit. And I see entrepreneurs dip in their risk tolerance. I'm kind of curious your mindset and approach from that perspective.
Yeah, it's almost like going from like, you know, puberty to a teenager to an adult to like an elderly adult in the way you look at it as an entrepreneur. Like you're like 100%, you know, velocity, but no vector of what you're actually doing when you first start out. You got an idea, you're super excited about it. But then as you get some of those bumps and bruises and scars, or like you learn something, you obviously time and education, you can't take away that, you know, and so you learn and understand. So yeah, you start to, I think, manage and assess risk better because you don't know what you don't know until you've experienced it or you've heard it from somebody else. It's always great to learn from somebody else's mistakes so you don't make them. And I've been good about that, but you also, if you're not aware of certain things that could happen or what somebody else could be doing or whatever it is, until you get to that point, I think as you age as an entrepreneur, it's almost like just growing up in general. You know, you are less likely to take the bigger risks. Yes, the big rewards are exciting, and you know, a lot of people always do that, and some of those guys, you know, go on to make, you know, millions and billions. But other guys, you know, you just take that consistent step up constantly, and you take that lower risk but a good return, and then that will compound over time. There's nothing better for, you know, compounding things than time, right? The education that you've got, the amount of effort that you put in, you know, your traffic, all those kind of things, as you build up over time, it gets bigger and bigger, and it starts to, like, you know, snowball. So for me, I think that risk aversion and understanding what you're doing as an entrepreneur, as you get past, you know, your first either failure or your first success, you learn. And then it's about the mindset of, I'm just going to keep going forward. Like, there's certain things that I probably should be thinking about it in my past of, like, you know, we did this with software, we screwed something up. I think I just understand that moving forward, that this is what I'm going to do. This is the plan that we have. We've looked at and mitigated our risk, and we're willing to take this as an acceptable risk level and move forward. So I'm going to put out this amount of capital towards it, or this amount of time and energy, and then just, I'm positive thinking. I'm not worried about what happened. I'm going to take what I learned and apply that moving forward, or, you know, take either like a coach or another mastermind group or something like that, where I can get that accelerated success from, or that accelerated knowledge base, and then move forward from there. So there's plenty of groups that either I work with or I'm in, or that I've been a part of, where essentially you're paying for knowledge and acceleration of that, basically risk aversion and that understanding, where you can say, well, dude, that's stupid because you haven't thought of 1, 2, or 3, and you can go, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't think about that. Or, you know what, I understand that, but I'm willing to take that risk. And, you know, and sometimes it's hard to sit down and just let it be as an entrepreneur, especially even for me. I can go 1,000 miles an hour all day long, right? But to sit down and stop and think about what the difference of what these two options I'm potentially going to take could do for my business, and just, you know, let it marinate for a day or so, and then go from there. Looks like we may have just dropped off the video.
Yeah, it looks like your video's off. I'll kind of keep talking if we can take a look. You know, what was going through my head is people always ask me, you know, what it's like when I started the business, and I usually describe myself as I've got the Wile E. Coyote mentality, where, you know, if I run off the cliff, as long as I don't look down, I don't fall. So I just keep moving forward.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I think you're 100% right. When you just start out, and, you know, it's as you age in life and as you age as an entrepreneur, you learn things. You're more seasoned. You understand certain things that you didn't know before, that no school can teach you. They can't teach you certain things. It's just experience, and once you have that experience, you can grow from there.
Jeff, you want to try hitting that? I think it's like the webcam button, like that video button, and there we go.
Yeah, it's ironic. I've been clicking it. It's the it was a weird connection because my camera actually went off and came back on. So
gotcha. Okay, so we're back.
So look, technical issues. We just get past it, right? We just roll. That's the example right there. We just roll through it. We didn't just like whatever shut down. Those are little things that you just get used to and happen. You roll with the punches.
Yeah, and just something that I would add is just working very closely with both of you. I think there are definitely some similarities in both of your approach and kind of mindset. You guys both work in a very focused manner. You guys are both really good at getting a ton of stuff done Just, I mean, I see a lot of similarities in both of you from that perspective. So it was interesting hearing the mindset stuff, from your side, Jeff. And I think something I was going to add is I think something that you guys rely on in a very intelligent way is learning from others in groups, right? So Andy's part of your forum, EO. And then I know, Jeff, that's been a big part for you, just being involved in masterminds and groups of peers, entrepreneurs, and learning from them. Some that have been really successful and really accelerating your growth by picking up on, learning from their advice and mistakes and all of that.
Yeah, I find the mental aspect of business and entrepreneurship one of the most interesting of the mentality. I mentor a number of different entrepreneurs. I've had my business 18 years now, and so I've had huge ups and downs and seen various scenarios, even though I'm still pretty young. But, in mentoring people, just the mentality that people go through at different stages in their business, or even their own natural mentality and how they are, just significantly impacts every aspect, how fast they move, the decisions they make, the people that they hire, all of these things. So I'm always interested in the mental piece of it. And I think it's really interesting your background with the fighter pilots and the military.
Yeah, I'm pretty hard-headed. Not like you can't convince me of certain things, or like I'm so set in my ways. But if I decide that we're gonna move forward, like unless you give me the facts that we can't move forward, we're gonna try it and we're gonna go from there. And I think it's the self-confidence that, hey, if we do it, and actually this would come from my pilot background, is we hated indecisiveness. You are going to be wrong sometimes, but indecisiveness kills, especially flying an airplane in like a combat type scenario, right? So make one of two decisions. You've only got one or two. Are you going to go left? You're going to go right, or high, low, whatever that is. Whatever your decision is at the verge or at that point of decision, but just flailing around and not doing anything is going to wind up killing you. So we can always debrief to why you made the wrong decision and how we don't do it again as an objective. But when you make the right decision, it's great, right? You're moving down there from there. So it's that indecision. So me being decisive and pretty hard-headed of, hey, look, this is what we're going to do, and we may be wrong, but we're going to commit, right? It's focus, faith, and effort, and discipline for me. So focus on something, have faith in the effort that we're going to put in, that we're going to get through it, and then the discipline to actually maintain that course, either all the way to the end or when it's a point that we got to pivot and then go from there. And I think that those three little factors right there have been huge for me. And I talk a lot of that to my students and in the program and stuff, where if you have that and you understand that you're going to stay focused to what you want to do, then no one can take you off that track unless they can absolutely prove to you otherwise that you need to. And then you accept it without an ego and understand that, hey, look, maybe I was wrong, and go from there. I mean, that's actually another thing too for me, is having briefing with, as like a lieutenant with a colonel or lieutenant colonel or even like a major, and you're the one that's in the room that's in charge. And you need to tell him, respectfully why we made that decision or why his decision was bad. So I learned that pretty early on too, is how to handle high risk scenarios, or basically with people that are my elder, that more experienced and senior with me, and to be able to respect them while getting my point across on the whys. And it's about bringing facts. And here's why we're doing this. Here's what our plan is. Here's the vision, and here's our objectives. Did we meet them or not?
So let me ask you a question about flying that has to do with business.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I heard this quote once, that the number of pilots that go into clouds, and because they start following their guts and they start moving the plane, they're not paying attention to their dials, the number of new pilots that come out of clouds upside down would surprise you, because they follow their gut. And instead of looking at the metrics and looking at, where are they with the altimeter or whatever it is. So just an interesting piece of like paying attention to your tools versus your gut. One, is that true from a flying perspective? And then two, what is that mindset for you of using data and information versus your gut and, the way you approach things?
So number one, data doesn't lie, and the gauges don't lie. So for me, the biggest thing for me and what we're looking at as a pilot is, yes, it is true. The first couple of times you go into a cloud or it's at night in the weather, there's lightning going off around you, things like that, you will potentially be spatial disoriented very, very quickly. And you will feel things because of your inner ear. And this is, now we're getting to physiology, right? So your body will think that you're in a turn when you're straight level. You'll think that you're upright when you're upside down. So that is, and you'll start pulling. Imagine upside down and you're pulling to get gravity, and now you're going upside down the wrong way. So yes, that is something that could happen. And it's been several years since I've flown, but I'll tell you, I have my own stories on those things. Like at night, thinking that I'm one way and the other, and you've got to trust your instrument. So what that means is, above everything else, if you think that you're doing something, you look down at the instruments or the HUD in F-16, even if that's something you're looking at, depending on where you're at, what kind of airplane you're in. Look at the instruments and trust that they're giving you the right data, because they most likely are in how many, probably 99.7% of the case scenario. So yes, going into the clouds, going at night, not having any sort of outside reference, your body will tell you something. So that's your gut feeling, and obviously, you want to trust your gut with your feeling in business, or personalities that you're working with, or maybe like a decision in your business. But when it's talking about the metrics and key data points, you're going to have to look at that data. The data doesn't lie, right? If your conversion rate's 7%, it's 7%. Because you think it's 50 or you think it's 0, doesn't matter. The numbers are right in front of you. So taking that data and then knowing what to do with it is going to be key. What is your churn rate? Is it, you think you're doing pretty good, but well, you have a double-digit churn rate in your business, or how many of your trials are converting into paid customers? Oh yeah, we're doing pretty good. Well, when you go, and especially going towards like an exit, or you're going over and people are looking at the statistics of your business and the metrics of your business, there are certain numbers that you can't fudge. You can tell them whatever you want, but when you show them what those hard numbers are, that is actually your business, not what you feel it is. They only care about the metrics and the numbers, and investors want to know about your numbers. So the data is the number one thing, because it doesn't lie.
Yeah, it's interesting. We just are working with a client now. You talked about retention and churn rate. Working with a client to help them retain users for their software. We're asking about churn rate and all this stuff, and we asked the client about like passive churn, people that their cards are no longer valid, etc. And he's like, oh, I don't think it's very many. It's not too big of a deal. And we like forced them to dig into the data and found out over the last 12 months there were 5,000 users that their cards ended up getting expired and not running, causing them to churn. And it was more like a running through a gut instinct. And this business owner is very good at using data for everything, but for some reason, this one aspect of the business, it was kind of like running with the gut.
Yeah, or it doesn't want to know it, or it's one of those things like, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist, right? Yeah. So then you got to find somebody else in your business to basically hire to do that. So when we did that with one of my other companies with churn and saving customers and data, we had a person that actually would, based on that right there, if we couldn't basically go through the dunning process to get them in, would send them an email and then pick up the phone and call them. And we were able to save about half of those people because they didn't know, or they weren't quite sure, they weren't getting the information. There's people with 40,000 unread emails in their inbox. For me, it's like single digits at all times, except for when I wake up in the morning. But for most people, it's not. It's literally 10, 20, 40, 100,000 unopened emails. You're in that stack to be read. So you're not a priority unless you're like a sale item kind of thing. So you've got to find a way to reach them, and dunning software or basically add-ons, depending on some of the payment process that you have, is a great way to do that, because they'll automatically update cards and things like that for you. And then just personal reach out and going from there. That would help save somebody on that churn, because we were able to do that where if you're not looking at the data and you don't know what it is, you don't know what your game plan is, because you don't know what's sitting in front of you.
Yeah, and then on the other side with it, I was thinking while you were talking about kind of the heads-up display and mentality, it's interesting for me, the balance of gut and data. Tony will tell you this, but I like to have logical exercises and charts for everything. Like if I'm going to make a decision, I'm figuring out what are the 6 factors that relate to that decision. How do I rank them, from 1 to 10? how am I judging whether it should be a 1 or a 10, and then how am I adding that up and looking at it. But then at the end of the day, even though I go through that exercise, follow my gut, but hopefully that having done the exercise to go through logic and thoughtfulness was part of my gut's own discovery of what the right way to go is.
I think it helps give you the proper gut feeling, right? Because if it helps recage, and as we used to say, like it helps recage, rebalance your brain, and it may be subconsciously back there that you saw this line item that told you, hey, this is what potentially could stick in your mind. It might not be at the forefront, but it's in there and it's in that calculation. So I'd probably do something very, very similar to that. Like I look at it and I kind of have a feeling, and either I validate it or invalidate it and go from there.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit, Jeff, I would love to hear the story about kind of after we were working together. I know you went into, you built out your next piece of software, which was Reputation Loop, and I know that was successful. I'd love to hear about that and kind of what ended up happening with that, because I think that's a great story as well.
So I met my business partner, Zach, at another conference event that I was actually supposed to be speaking about the tool that you and I, that you had, you knew about, the one that I built when you and I worked together, that leads tool. And then we just kind of hit it off about, oh, there goes my video again. So we hit it off about golf and personal experiences in life and things like that. And we were both, potentially getting into the reputation space, and I was doing website hosting and things like that. And we were trying to do, I think Tony, you were around for that too with the website hosting, and basically kind of redirecting people based on different websites and things like that. And Zach was doing some other things with email, and we decided we were going to basically build a platform to solve a solution for agencies. And he had the idea, was, wanted to see if I wanted to work with him on it. So we decided we were going to partner up and basically built a company that was called Reputation Loop to go out there and serve the agency space in a white label manner, to be able to go help local businesses, generate feedback from their customers, and then based on, positive feedback, help generate them more reviews online. So we basically took that and released it into the space. With some really great, easy upfront success based off of the fact that I had this huge list of customers that were agencies because of my software tool. So I basically seeded the start of the Reputation product with my current customers who knew me, they trusted me, they knew what we were doing, and then we basically took that and built that out. We had that for about, I think it was 4 or 5 years. That we were continuing to build out, and our goal from the beginning was to build it and to exit the company, and that was something that we were planning on doing from the beginning, and we were clear on that moving forward. So as we went through that process, that was always our goal, is how do we make ourselves look good for either a private equity firm or a competitor come in and basically scoop us up from there. After a couple of years, we had a couple thousand agencies that we were working with, over 10 to 15,000 locations that we were managing. We had franchise enterprise location clients, as well as your one-off agency that had anywhere from 0 to 3 clients, and trying to get them going. So we had a pretty diverse group, but our goal was to basically build a platform that we became one of the most well-known, if not well-known, white label agency platforms for reputation management. And I think we did a pretty good job of that by going out and just doing regular content marketing, working with our agencies, and continuing to put out other products that fed into our core product. So we basically would go out and create something to help generate leads, to help you close reputation deals into our software. And then we would go out there and sell training and smaller tools to get people back in that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. So how did you guys end up? Was it a PE firm that ended up acquiring?
Yeah, so we basically had a private equity firm from Silicon Valley reach out to us a couple times. I think Zach ignored them the first couple of emails, because we would get like some discovery calls, and we want to drop in like the typical, we want to give you guys $1 million for advertising budget. Like that, we heard that like 6 times in 5 years easily, and we're like, we don't want that. That's not what our goal is. And then this PE firm came in, and they had basically the exact offer that we wanted, and it was at a really good time for us for what we were doing. And we wanted to be able to hand off our customers and feel comfortable with what we were doing as well, because we weren't leaving the space, and we were going to continue to be around. Now, we didn't expect everything to be perfect, but we liked their overall vision, where they were going when we first met, what their passions were, and when we sat down with them, we got along well. Like, we had a good conversation. It wasn't like you have that uncomfortable feeling, and you're just like, we cared about our customers, so we wanted to make sure that we were handing it off. We had a good, warm feeling about it. So, we went through the process. We got paused for a little bit, just for some things that were happening, and then had a successful exit in 2019 that we were able to basically clean out the closet of everything that we had done together, get all the extra software and products and all the other things that were set up. That was all sold to that PE firm, and basically with a fresh start. I started again in 2019 from the ground up, and me and Zach parted ways, went separately in our businesses, friends, and no issues. But it was just like, all right, we had a good run. Like Tony, we worked together for 5-7 years, and it was like, great, we had a good run. Now we evolved to something else, and we both had different paths that we wanted to go on, and go from there.
Yeah, it's awesome. So tell us about some of this stuff that you're doing in your next stage. I know you've got some products out there. You've got some ones launching. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I decided that I was going to be able to build multiple products at a time by creating what I like to call a core admin engine for my SaaS platform, and then basically working with friends or partners that I worked with before that I know that can do the marketing side of it, because I did a lot of the marketing up front early with Reputation Loop and obviously the other companies. Tony, you're well aware of all of that. So I'm trying to basically compound my overall experience by building core products. And the one that we're really excited about that's about to come out is called Social Rotation. And it's about getting content out there for small business owners, your doctors, dentists, chiropractors, with content on social media through images, because they get more engagement on a regular basis and some text on a daily scheduled basis. So 1 to 2 posts per day for 6 months to a year is the packages that we're selling when we release this, where an agency can go in and they can go and buy a pack of content for a specific chiropractor that's valuable, with that chiropractor's logo on it, or that dental location's logo and their brand already tied onto it. And then they can just run regular content. They can see and edit it, but basically it's already done for them, and it's scheduled, and it will post to their Facebook account on a regular basis. So now they're in front of their potential customers on a regular basis. They're educating, they're giving good information, good content, so that, as we learned when we were out there building Reputation Loop, content's king, right? The more content you can put out there, the bigger and better you are. But social media content's really, really difficult. So with Social Rotation, what we did is we're able to go 1 to 2 posts per day that they're able to then have, some content underneath it that's valuable, that people will read, they'll like, they'll share it, and then that gets the name of the brand of that business out there, and you're staying in front of your customers on a regular basis, or your potential customers, because they followed and liked that social media profile.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, really cool.
So we've been doing it. Well, actually, my partner in it was doing it manually for a long time. So we basically took a 2 to 3 hour process of creating this and uploading it, and we took it down to just a few minutes, and you could schedule it out for months at a time. And that really allows an agency to show value and scale, or go direct to a business owner and allow them to do it where they don't have to do all this work to figure it out. Because you guys know, like, implementation, if they don't implement it, they're not going to see results. So, or as an agency, you're not getting the return on the time investment that you're putting in for the what you're charging, the value investment, right? So if you're charging a couple $100 a month, but it's taking you, if you're charging $200-$300 a month, but it's taking you $150 to $200 worth of work, you're really not in profit, right? You're basically in a job. So we're basically automating and scaling that process for agencies.
That's awesome. So when you mentioned that you're kind of building this, I forgot how you said, but like a software engine. So you're building something that you can create similar types of software apps from that engine?
Yeah, so the way my consulting company built the admin engine was we basically took the white label reseller level and the user level and built in payments and all the stuff that you need to run a SaaS platform. And then what we do is we partner with somebody. We say, all right, well, what problem is your SaaS going to solve? So we then go out there and we basically then put in that piece of the software on top of the admin engine, and it works. and it's out the door. So what I'm doing is I'm basically speeding up my development by anywhere from 3 to 6 months because I'm not recreating the wheel every time. But you were around, we were creating with a different team, a different piece of software every single time. With Reputation Loop and with some of the other platforms that we were building, we started from scratch every single time with a different team. Everybody has a different concept of what a white label is, or how to integrate Stripe, or how to integrate billing, or user levels. And it's like, I was tired of doing the same thing and wasting 3 to 6 months of my life every single time before I even got to solving the problem. And then each system worked slightly differently. So we just condensed that into one black box that solves everything. And then now we just take the other piece, put it on top, and go from there. So I've got a couple that are already in development that whether they go or not doesn't matter to me, because the problem piece is the only piece that I have to put on top because the admin engine's already there. And then as long as the partner and I are growing that piece out, then we're good to go. We're developing it out, and then when it launches, it's ready to go. But the core piece is already done. So it drastically accelerates the overall process for me.
Really cool.
Yeah. So I'm kind of curious, going back to more the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah.
What's a big mistake and or learning lesson that you've had as an entrepreneur over your career?
One big learning mistake that got pointed out to me right before the sale of our company was content. We went from doing content once a week and paying and having a content provider to scaling back. We actually went the complete wrong way. We were like, oh, we're good. We got stuff out there. Let's just, we do it once a month now and ready to go. We should have been doubling down instead of doing it every other week. We should have been going and doing 1 to 2 times a week so that we were actually continuing to basically get our feeders out there. Because when you start doing searches for relevant content that eventually would come back to Reputation, we were popping up on search engines everywhere for a bunch of different other pieces of content that wasn't just white label reputation management platform. We were able to funnel a bunch of people in from there. So that was one major mistake that I think that probably cost us, a lot of new users, which meant that it cost us in the exit of the company because we didn't keep that going. It was, we went to monthly, which was great, but we were doing it every other week or weekly, and we should have been doing it weekly and then localizing it even more into those areas. So that's something that was a huge lesson learned for me as I move forward, especially. And that's maybe why I'm into social content right now, is because I learned that. And then another thing is, I'm not on social media a lot. Like some family stuff here and there. My businesses are starting to be more and more, but I'm now, especially now it's happening here through 2020, is I've learned a lot that like you need to be on there and what things a business can do, or the opportunities that are sitting right in front of a business to be on social media and to grow your presence. The other huge, this was a huge lesson learned for me personally, was I gave up my Jeff Hershey brand, right? Hershey was my call sign as an F-16 pilot. So, Schwartz, hard to spell. I get Schwartz and all this other stuff all the time, right? So, but people knew who Jeff Hershey was, and they still did if they were part of the product. But I had given up, and I did go all in on this in like 2014, which was the company brand, not me. But I just killed myself off, which was the wrong thing to do. I didn't have a location for people to learn more about me or to keep going. So while I was growing my brand, I should have also been growing my personal brand and kept that going. So I basically had to start from scratch. Now, people know who I am and people in the space understand who I am, but I didn't have the followerships. I didn't have the huge email list that I once had with my company that I can brand just for me, because I'd basically given that up. So in the sale of the company, most of all my assets disappeared. So I had to go out there and rebuild it. So one key factor I say to founders, if you plan on not just doing a one and done, is build a little bit more personal brand around yourself as well. So that when most people build SaaS, like we're not here to change the world. We're here to build a business. And while some people are eventually going to try to change the world with a couple things, you're looking to build a SaaS platform to exit and then move on to your next project, or take that money and go do something else with it, which could potentially be, philanthropist or whatever you want to do, depending on how much money you make. But you need to have something for the long term, your plan B. What's your exit strategy for yourself to keep things going? So a personalized blog or personalized content channels and connections that lead people to your main brand is what you need to be looking at and considering. And I totally screwed that up back in 2014, 2015, and now I'm paying for it. And now I'm clawing back up the ladder to get my name out there because I gave that up. So that was a huge lesson learned for me. A little outside the business side of it, of like, hey, we tripped up on billing or something like that. But I think it's huge that a lot of people don't pay attention to that. And you got to sit down. You got to have that feeling of, what am I going to do long term?
Yeah, it's great. Awesome.
Yeah, very cool. So where, if people want to learn more about you, Jeff, about your software, your upcoming projects, tell us where they can find out more. I'm sure when we put this out there, we'll share links and info.
Cool. So the app's called Social Rotation. So it'll be on socialrotation.com. That'll be the new app that we're putting out there. It's going to also have a white label reseller level. I learned that was really powerful for my business. Actually, that's another good key. If you can do a white label reseller version, you can have other people out there selling for you. And then teach them how to sell. It's a huge key. I've said it like 4 or 5 times today, but I want to really get that across. But to find more about me and my brand and what I'm doing and all the different platforms that we're building, jeffhershey.com, HERSCHY, a little bit different. I'm sure you guys will put the link to that on there. But if you just Google Jeff Hershey, I'm sure a website will pop up, and that will link to my consulting agency as well as the different platforms that are live that are out there that we're doing, a little bit about me and my history and my background. You'll see an airplane on there, so you'll know it's me. And then obviously you'll see my face, so we'll be good to go. But that's how you can find out a little bit more about me and the projects and where we're going this year and next year.
That's great, man. Thank you so much. This was awesome catching up with you, hearing your story and some of the things you've been up to recently and since we worked together. Really good stuff. So thanks again for your time, and excited to get people to hear this one. Got some good value out of it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed it. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Check out SaaS.coach for other episodes and things that we've done, and also Incivia.com, our main consultancy. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jeff. Any last words?
First of all, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And what you guys are doing here is amazing. Go out there and work your businesses, and you got plenty for sure with all the podcasts, everything you guys have. It's set up for a lot of good SaaS owners to take advantage of it and really profit. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Jeff.
care, everybody.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Jeff.
care, everybody.
Bye-bye.